When you ask someone what's the best damage type to use in Warframe, 99% of the time they're gonna say slash. But why? Slash is one of the 3 basic physical damage types, those being impact, puncture, and slash. And each one of the damage types has their own niche. Impact does increase damage to shields, puncture does increase damage to armor, and slash does increase damage to flesh. So would it not make sense to use impact versus the corpus, puncture versus the Grineer, and slash versus the infested? Well, yes, but also no. Armor can be stripped, shields can be broken, and underneath those shields and armor is still flesh. And it's not difficult to do. Slash doesn't do less damage to shields, it's just neutral, so it breaks through them fairly easily. And stripping armor nowadays can be done in a bajillion different ways, so it's very easy to get to corpus and cloned flesh of the Grineer. However, this only matters when you're doing upfront damage, and it's not the main reason why slash is so good. The reason why slash is the best is because of status. Every damage type in Warframe has its own status effect, and while impact and puncture have been buffed quite significantly over the last few years, slash still has the best status effect in the game. Because while impact is pretty good nowadays as it staggers enemies and opens them up to Parazon finishers, and puncture makes enemies do less damage and makes them easier to crit, slash just does a lot of damage. And it does it in the best way possible. Cinematic damage over time. Now, what the balls is cinematic damage? Well, it's like slash damage, it's basically the same thing, except it bypasses all armor. So, you know the whole thing about slash not being good against armor? Yeah, that doesn't matter if you're building for status. Now, the way slash procs are calculated is a little bit awkward, and I think it confuses people a lot. Because mods like Fanged Fusillade or Buzzkill actually have no effect on your slash procs. Not a direct damage altering one anyway. You see, the way status works in Warframe is you hit an enemy and the game goes, alright, that's a status proc, but which status proc? Because more often than not, you're doing more than one type of damage. So what the game does is it just looks at the amount of damage you have on the weapon. If you have a weapon that has 100 impact, 100 puncture, and 100 slash damage, then each of them have about a 33% chance to be chosen when the game rolls for a status proc. But if the weapon has 80 slash damage and then 10 impact and 10 puncture, your chance of proccing slash is 80%, with only 10% for puncture and 10% for impact. This is why I use mods like Fanged Fusillade and Buzzkill. It's not to do more damage with the slash proc, but to make that slash proc more likely to be chosen over the other status effects. But if these mods don't work, what can we actually do to increase the damage of our slash procs? Well, let's look over the calculation, which is actually relatively simple. There aren't too many steps to it. First, we need to figure out modded base damage, which is just the base damage of the weapon with no mods, modified by base damage bonuses, which are mods like Serration, Hornet Strike, and Pressure Point, and we multiply that with faction damage multipliers, which are your Bane mods, Cleanse mods, Expel mods, and Smite mods. The result from this is going to be our modded base damage. We then take this modded base damage, multiplied by 0.35, then multiplied by faction damage bonuses again, and multiply one last time with additional multipliers, which are crit and weak points. This is what determines the damage of the slash proc, which will then be dealt 6 times in a 7-second period. If you're not a big fan of math, you can think of it this way. Gun times Serration times Bane mod gives you a number. 35% of that number times Bane mod times crit, optionally headshot, equals the damage of your slash proc. Now, the keen-eyed among you may have noticed that faction damage actually appears twice in this calculation. Once when determining the modded base damage, and then it appears for the second time when determining the actual damage of the slash proc. This is a pretty big reason why slash procs and damage over time procs in general are so strong. They double dip on faction mods. This is why all the sweaty nerds absolutely love faction mods, because when it comes to damage over time, faction mods give you 2 pretty chunky multipliers in one mod. They're pretty good for upfront damage weapons as well. I mean, a chunky multiplier is still a chunky multiplier, but 2 chunky multipliers are better than 1. And we're still not done. There's another reason why slash damage is so good. Viral damage. More specifically, viral procs, which have an insane synergy with slash procs. Viral procs increase damage taken to health by up to 325% at 10 stacks, which, as you might imagine, pairs really well with Slash, which is already pretty good at ripping through the enemy's flesh, but also happens to bypass all of the enemy's armor with its status effect. It is an absolutely devastating combination, which is why everyone and their mum tries to ham-fist it on every weapon they can. Now, what makes this brutally strong is the fact that you don't need to do Slash and Viral on the same weapon. You can load your Slash-focused weapon with as much damage as possible and then use a primer instead. A primer is a piece of equipment that's specifically designed to proc Vital as fast as possible on as many things as possible. Though it doesn't just have to be Vital, you usually have multiple different status effects so that you can increase your damage even further through condition overload-like effects as well. This, by the way, is a very sweaty thing to do, and you will absolutely not need it for 99.9% of the game. For the vast majority of the game, you'll be absolutely fine if you just put a Vital on the weapon you're proccing Slash with. Then if you want to step it up a notch, you want to move the Vital onto your companion, something like a Moa or a Sentinel with a Vital-based Hellstrom, or maybe even subsume Nourish onto your frame. And then and only then, if that's still not enough, you might want to go for a primer. Trust me, a decent Slash weapon will clear Steel Path absolutely fine without a primer. And a really good one can clear base level Steel Path without using Vital at all. So what did we hopefully learn today? Well, Slash is a really good damage type because it does increase damage to enemy flesh with the ability to bypass enemy armor with its status effect. This makes it absolutely incredible when paired up with a Vital status effect, which increases the damage enemies take to their health, and because its status effect deals damage over time, it has access to more multipliers than basically anything else thanks to faction mods double dipping in the calculation. And there's actually one more thing here. Since the Slash proc doesn't actually care about the amount of slash damage on the weapon, because the calculation for a Slash proc is based off of the weapon's base damage, not the weapon's slash damage, we are able to proc Slash with weapons without investing into Slash at all, even on weapons that don't do a lot of slash damage. Whether it is through mods like Hunter Munitions, which allows you to proc Slash on a crit, or Internal Bleeding and Hemorrhage, which effectively convert impact procs into slash, or through melee stances, which have 4 slash procs on a lot of their combos as well as heavy attacks. And that's why Slash is the best damage type in the game. So as always guys, I thank you very much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and if there is any other topic you would like to see explained like this, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. And I would also like to extend a special thank you to all the channel members. Thank you very much guys, I really appreciate your support. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.